Hello, welcome back. Yes, we're all about making monsters, going into the snow. Uh, I do a lot of these, primarily to encourage you to make your own monsters, and we've been doing a lot of 5e, but today we'll be doing some Shadowdark. Should be fun, and I'll give you all the tools you need to make it happen and show you that process. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll if you want to. I suggest grabbing some food, some drink, and getting comfortable. I expect this to take me about 20 minutes to cover with you, and then we should better get straight on with our day and go and do whatever other things we need to do. Shouldn't take too long at all. So make sure you got your food and drink, make sure you're comfortable, and let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, specifically Shadowdark RPG. This version of Dungeons & Dragons is one of my favourites. It's easy to make monsters for, and I'm going to show you that process, and we're going to deal with a very famous monster, the Yeti, or Abominable Snowman. There's the mythology behind it, the folklore, and of course the fantasy side of it, and we're going to deal with that monster specifically for today for Shadowdark. Should be a fun time. I expect we'll get a lot done and learn a lot. It's actually not a very easy monster stat block to build for. Believe it or not, I I know this because I've had to do it. So, and I've done a bit of homework. So what I'll do is I usually ask everybody how you would go about making the stat block, and then I show you what I've done and how I would adjust things and explain that process. So let's go here. How would you build the Yeti stat block for Shadowdark RPG? Okay. Now, how would you build the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, right, that's it in. Right, so by all means, present your ideas, and let's go over to my little Google page where I have been working and show you what I have for you today, and then go through that process and do some explaining. Okay, so here we are. We are definitely beyond draft 20. It's probably a lot more than that. So we're going to go here, draft 21. It is not the 2nd of October. I kind of must have fallen behind. It's the 12th of November, isn't it? We missed a week, didn't we? It is the 12th of November here in New Zealand. So let's do that, November. Oops. And this is in conjunction with AJ Pickett. When AJ has freed his time up a bit, but he's a bit busy right now, designing yet another game. We're not going to cover monster lore. The lore of the Yeti is the monster lore for the Yeti is the monster lore of the Yeti. You look at the mythology and the folklore, and there it is. And then of course you've got whatever D&D does. But Yeti or Abominable Snowman, or Snowman, whatever you want to call it. There's a couple of other names for it as well. What is it? It is a large, white, hairy humanoid resembling an ape. When I looked at the sort of explanation of it, that was the one I found that thought that was the one that we should have stick with, so that's what I'll do. The Abominable Snowman lives in the highest, coldest parts of snow-covered mountains or wilderness. So this is our basic. Your first part you would read out, the other bit is really for your game master if they need a little bit of context around it. And now we go into the monster stat block. I always suggest starting off with the monster level and then build out the rest of your stat block from there. So if we look at something like 5e, since there is, Shadowdark does not have a Yeti or Abominable Snowman in it. I don't know why she's left it out, because I really don't believe that you could claim it as copyright. It is folklore, it is mythology, it is not an IP, but she's obviously felt like it was too dangerous to go in that direction, and so Kelsey's left it out. The 5e version is challenge rating 9. Now, I'm not going to necessarily follow that completely. Why? Because, as I've said before, challenge rating in 5e is really not very good. And I would know because I was one of the play testers for 2014 in the Monster Manual for 5e. And And if you've played the game enough, you will know that it's not a good indicator necessarily. Anyway, it has also changed a bit since then, since 2025 release of the Monster Manual. But if I go back to AD&D, so even if I look at, say, the 5e monster book, or even the new version, it really won't make any difference. I think 9 is not a bad number, but what we'll do is we'll go to AD&D, okay, the second version, and look at the hit dice. I always find the hit dice off the older monsters is probably a better indicator of how difficult the monster should be. And so if you have a look here, it says here hit dice 4 plus 4. Now, in my mind, I was thinking I should make it a level 4 monster. In the end, I decided I would add those two numbers together and make it an 8. Primarily because of the way I was reading through and understanding how this thing works, and its sheer size and what it was up to. It is kind of like a big hairy giant in many respects, that's in the snow. And then, of course, the sorts of features it was going to get sort of leaned me more towards going with level 8. But I would say there's an argument to be said that you could make it a level 4 monster or a level 8 monster or something in between. We're going to go with the level 8. This is the first draft, so I'm not worried about it changing. Neutrality, so its alignment is neutral, because that is what is in AD&D. I don't know if they necessarily carry that. Did they carry that over to 5e? They might have. I'm opening and closing books constantly here. Alignment, they've put down chaotic evil. I think that's the wrong alignment. I think that that's sort of leaning the Yeti in a direction it was not intended to be. It's definitely a dangerous creature, but yeah, maybe a bit too much in that direction. We don't need to do that. So we've got those. Next thing we need to do is start looking at our numbers. Now, I can't deal with armor class using Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or Basic, or because they're using descending armor class, as I've said before. So the place that I'd have to look for an ascending armor class is 3.5, which won't do me any good because it's built on a very different concept. 4e, which again would be useless to me, but version 5, that there's a place for that. So they've got armor class is 15. I don't know if that's going to stay that way. We'll see how it goes, okay? And it says 5e, it says natural armor. So I'm assuming it's thick hide and it's here, add some protection to it. Okay, so we've got that. Now we have to determine what its stats are. Now, again, AD&D doesn't usually have the stats or ability scores or ability modifiers listed out for your monster, so you're kind of stuck a little bit. So how do you deal with that? We go to 5e. And 5e, I think these numbers are probably too high. So I saw that they had listed down the strength for the Yeti, or Abominable Snowman. I believe the version on 5e that I'm looking at is the... Yeah, there's a Yeti and then there's an Abominable Snowman. And so one was, the Yeti is listed as a challenge rating 3, and the Abominable Snowman is listed as a challenge rating 9. So we're kind of going in the direction of the more powerful version. I decided it was probably more useful to you to go for the heavier end. A level 8 monster can be faced down, if your character's a level 5, 6, 7, 8, you should be all right, even at level 5. That would be a very tough fight and very dangerous, but they should still be able to get through it. 3 levels above the character level for a monster is usually the top end of your max. So I've gone with that, and then so the stats we're going to take off 5e. And I think the biggest problem I had was if I looked at the lower powered Yeti in 5e, it's probably in the wrong direction. We need something a little bit different to that. So I looked at the more powerful one, and I took some of my numbers from there. The problem is the more powerful version, its strength is 24, we're giving it a +7. A +7 modifier in Shadowdark is way too high. Like it's way outside the parameters of a level 8 monster. So I need to tone that down. If I take this table here is available free on Patreon, and you can download it to just part of the free tier where you don't pay anything, and you can make your own monsters from this. Level 8, you'll notice that the top end is a +5 and the bottom end is a -4. Those are the stats that I can sort of work with a level 8 monster. It's a big range, but there's no +7. In fact, you'll see that there's no +7 anywhere. But then this table only goes up to 10. Okay, so I would suggest trim down the strength, down to a +5. Okay, its dexterity is a 10, so that's just a 0 modifier. We can keep that, that's all right. Its constitution is 22, which is very, very high, and that would make it a +6. That's too high. It's outside of the realm for Shadowdark. So I could go down to a 5, but because it's 22 for constitution and strength was 24, I decided to stagger it a little bit. So I've reduced down by 2 points to a +4 for constitution, just because of the adjustment I made with the strength. It's not an absolute formula or anything like that. It's just a gauging and range thing. Its intelligence is not high. It's only a 9, which is not bad. That's a -1, so -1, we'll keep that. Wisdom is a 13, so +1. That's fine, we'll have that. And charisma is a 9, so that is a -1. So we've got all that. So we've got our numbers in there, plugged in. We need to determine our hit points for this monster. The hit points for any monster when you're building it is based off this formula. The range always falls between 35 and 40, with the average being about 36, believe it or not, or the most common one. But how do you do it? It's D8 that use an 8-sided dice for the monster's hit points, and you multiply the average of that, which is 4.5, by the monster level. So 4.5 multiplied by the monster level, and then add the constitution modifier only once, just as I've said before. So we'll do that, and we should get the number that we have already in that stat block. So 4.5 multiplied by the monster level, which is 8 in this case, although you may have depowered it, and it comes out at 36. And then I have to add the constitution modifier to 36, which the constitution it's a 4. We've made it a 4, so we add 4, and we get 40. So that is why the monster has hit points of 40. Okay. Next, determine how many attacks it has. Level 8, how many attacks? We should have between 3 and 8 attacks for a level 8 monster. Okay, so what I've done is I've given it 4 attacks, either bite or claws. Okay, that's sort of how I've looked at it. You either get bite, claw, or you get 1 gaze attack. Okay, so you get to choose. And I haven't sort of allowed you to mix and match with the bite and the claws. That might be something we want to consider. We might want to decide, okay, it would make more sense to only get 1 bite but have 3 claw attacks, or go with the gaze attack. We could say that it could be built that way, but I did this very quickly. So bite 4, claw 4, but the idea is they're going to get 4 attacks if they don't use their gaze. That's ultimately what we're looking at. I decided that the bite would have less damage. So how much damage should a level 8 monster do? Between an 8-sided dice and a 10-sided dice. Okay, so I gave the bite an 8, a D8, and the claws a D10. Okay, so that was easy enough. Next, what was our attack bonus going to need to be? Our attack bonus for level 8 monsters can be anywhere from a +5 to a +9 at the top end. I find, as I've said before, that your monster level ±1 is probably the best thing to go with. But we also ultimately have to look at our strength and our dexterity. Obviously, its attack's not based off dexterity. They're going to be based off strength, which is +5, which means we have to at least have it be a +5 or higher for it to be working as a level 8 monster, in my opinion. So what we'll do is, and based off that table, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and say, okay, it's probably not necessarily going to be the most combat effective machine, so giving it a +9 is not necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to be a +8 either, so I went down and I just added 2 to the 5 on the strength modifier and gave that a +7. And I went +7 on both. It makes it simple, don't get confused that way, and there's no need to say that it's easier for them to attack with their claws than their bite. You could, but I don't think it's really that important. It will just alleviate some confusion. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the basics for our monster in terms of their attacks and their damage. And then we've got our gaze, which we need to go over in a second. How fast does this thing move? Well, looking at AD&D, it had a movement of 15. And I usually sort of say that between 8, 9, or 12 is basically near range. 15 is not really double near in terms of movement. So I'm still going to bracket it because you're using abstract movement in Shadowdark. We're going to go with near. Okay. In 5e, I believe the speed for them is 40. And they are also sort of indicated as being climbers in 5e. I think we could probably add in climb as a feature. I don't think they said very much about climbing for the Yeti in AD&D, but I'm not against the idea of adding climb. Because if they're on mountains, they probably would be doing a bit of climbing. They're probably good at that sort of thing. So we'll leave climb. And if it's an ape, apes tend to be very good at climbing, whether it's a white ape or it's a brown ape or a black ape or whatever. So, yeah. So primates tend to be very good at climbing. We'll add that in. So that wasn't there before, but it is now. Okay, now we need to look at some of its key features. Well, whether it's 5e or AD&D, one of the things that you discover is they are very good at hiding in snowy or white environments. And so this is why we have camouflage here. And I've written it up that way, specifically because that duplicates that very aspect. It's also written into the lore in terms of the mythology and the folklore of the Yeti, the snowman. So we're going to leave that there. Advantage on dexterity checks to hide in snowy or white environments. Since they're white, it seemed reasonable. Okay, next, it's gaze. In both cases, there is some sort of gaze attack that affects somebody who sees this creature or the creature looks at, kind of causing fear of some kind or paralysis. And so I wanted to port that idea across. It's kind of like the chilling gaze, but instead of calling it chilling gaze, I'm just going to call it gaze. Okay? Is it duplicating a magical sort of thing that paralyzes them? Is it just a fear effect that paralyzes them so they're so terrified they just plant themselves there and stay still? Really, I don't know. It's up to you. So what I've done here is I've gone gaze. Any creature that the Yeti looks at, DC 15 Constitution check with a near range or paralyzed for 1 round. Now, does it need to be Constitution? That's the question, right? It might well be that it doesn't need to be Constitution. It could be a Wisdom check. Maybe it's more around wisdom, you know, their ability and understanding that they're trying to flee. Is it a magical effect that we're dealing with, or is it a psychological effect of just sheer fear? I put down here 1 round, but it's a level 8 monster. We could go with D4, 1d4 rounds. We could roll for it to see. That wouldn't be unreasonable for a level 8 monster. If it was a level 4 monster, I might be a little bit more reluctant to do that. But even something like the Ghast or the Ghoul, who have paralyzing touches, they have to touch rather than look at you. It's a little bit different, but this is still stating near range, so you've still got to be relatively close, within about 30 feet, right? So we'll do that, and we could take this Constitution check and say it's not magical, it's more a fear effect. That would be fine too. So I'm going to put this here. I'm kind of curious to see how people feel about this. I honestly think ultimately in the end, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. Okay, so that's how I would go about building the Yeti. Let's go to see the chat and see what you guys have cocked up and see what opinions you have. Nothing. Very, very quiet today. I know these are... Look, I do these so that you will go and make your own monsters for Shadowdark. If you're playing Shadowdark. If you are playing 5e, go make your own monsters for 5e. There is a table, also part of my free tier, where you can go make those. I want you to make your own stuff. I want you to use the stuff that I make. I put them onto Patreon on the paid tier. But, okay, we're going to end this because we have had 1 vote just watching. Okay, let's end there. And I am going to go back. I'm going to show you the stat block one more time. And then we're going to finish. And I'll be back next week to do another monster. What is going to happen with all these monsters when I finally get to about 100? I'm going to go and see Wally DM, and we're going to put them out as a product. I think that is probably the best thing to do, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this Constitution in highlighted. I'll make a decision about it later. As for the attacks, I would like you to be able to sort of mix and match the attacks a bit. But how do I structure that so that it isn't going to sort of make a mess? I don't know. I could go easy. 3 claws and 1 bite would be a reasonable combination, I think. That's not actually outside the realm of making sense. So let's go 1, 2, 3. So 3, and then we'll go and instead of that. Or you get to do your gaze. Okay. And the gaze is a little bit more dangerous in that you could potentially look at more than one individual within near range. Yep. So it has an effect that might be a little bit more of a hassle than the players were expecting, particularly if it can affect multiple individuals. Whereas your bite and your claws might only ever be directed at one target. That's the other thing to consider. So there we are. And as I said, all of the numbers that I take from here are off this table. This table is partly created by the Shadowdark RPG core rulebook, but also by me doing a lot of statistical mathematics. Okay, so armor class is 11 to 18. I'm going to leave it at the 15. I don't think it really matters. Difficulty class between 9 and 18. I'll put it as a 15 because it's the high end. I think it's probably better to have a 15 rather than a 12 or a 9 for your DCs with checks when you're dealing with a monster of that level. So I'll leave it near the top end. Okay, because it's its main feature is the fact that it can sort of stop people moving and paralyze them for a period of time. So that's the gist of it. There's the monster, and yes, we are going to end there by the looks. That was a quick one. I told you it would be about 20 minutes and we'll be finished. I don't muck around. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody or the one person who took part in the poll. I do appreciate you taking part in the poll. At least I know that there's somebody still watching. And huge thank you to all of my patrons who support me on Patreon and the paid tier. I really do appreciate it. Without you, I probably couldn't do this, and I would just wind up disappearing into the ether, which is kind of happening anyway. But yeah, huge thank you. And I noticed there's been a few people who have jumped in recently. Tomorrow we're dealing with backgrounds for 5e or 2024. So yes, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon or the night, please look after yourself, your family and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.